Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy here. Welcome to the Instant Banzuke for Aki 2023 going into Kyushu 2023. Chiyo Tsuke got this thing up and running even earlier than usual. Bless his heart, big ups to him. Now, before I get started, let me just say that usually when I do this, what I'm recording is my first real draft, but I've had a time to look things over, have some idea what I'm walking into. This time, no chance. I had 47 students turn in papers on Thursday, and I've just been reading those. I've had very little contact with the conversation around any of this outside of like the bottom of Makuuchi, top of Juryo. So this is going to be interesting. We'll see how this goes. Let's start with the easy stuff at the top. So Teran and Fuji obviously is going to stay as Yokozuna. Kirishima gets dropped back to 1 West and Takakeisho up to 1 East because Takakeisho had more wins. Hoshoryu had the fewest of the Ozeki, so he's going to stay at 2 West. Daisho, Wakamoto Haru, and Ko Tonowaka, thankfully for us, their rank order is also the order in which they had the most of the least wins, so they're all going to stay in the same order. Nishikigi and Tobizaru are going to get demoted. That means we're doing the math now. Let's get into it. That's Makuuchi. Let's start moving the Juryo guys around. Okay, everything looks about right. So a couple of notes real quick. One, Asakoryu, he was 7 and 8 at Juryo 13 West, so he mathematically falls to Juryo 14 West. I have everybody else lined up underneath him because there's nowhere else to place him and actually keep him on the list. But he is actually mathematically still in Juryo. Everybody else should be up for a demotion. Whether they're actually going to be demoted is another question entirely, but we'll get to that. That's a much later thing. Let's go back to the top for now. The Komusubi. So Hokuto Fuji, he had a winning record at Maegashira 1 East. He's gonna get promoted to Komusubi. It doesn't matter that Abi and Asanoyama are mathematically ahead of him. What this creates, theoretically, is a question of whether Abi and Asanoyama would both get promoted, with Hokuto Fuji placed behind them at Komusubi 2 West in this case. Because Asanoyama, who is the question mark here, is only 9 and 6, that seems really unlikely. Going from 2 West to 1 East on 9 wins is not that weird. So he should end up at 1 East, while Abi goes to Komusubi 1 East and Hokuto Fuji to Komusubi 1 West. Abi and Hokuto Fuji could get switched, but that's sort of the mood of the committee. You know, there's not a lot to go on there. Shodai, Ganoyama, Takayasu. So this is where we have our first question mark, because in the last couple bashos, bear in mind, we've had a lot of open spots for guys to come up into. Now that these open spots are below where they mathematically shoot up to, we have to deal with not over demoting guys or anything like that, or not excessively demoting guys. So this gets a little trickier. Shodai, so this is a situation where even though they, in the last basho, or like for Aki, there was the whole thing with Ryuden getting put on top of that group of 4 guys and there being no Joy preference. This seems like where they're going to go quite possibly back to giving preference to guys in the Joy, because if these guys are all tied and there's nowhere for them to go up, then do you really bump Takayasu ahead of Ganoyama and Shodai? I doubt it. Now, do you bump Ganoyama ahead of Shodai, but leave Takayasu behind both of them? That's maybe. That's super maybe. I will not do that at the moment, because the question is, what do we do with Meisei and Tobizaru in this case? Tobi seems like he's not going to get any kind of rank savings, because there's already guys getting pushed down around him. I would suspect he's not going to get moved below Maegashira 3 West. I suppose he could, but there's not necessarily a reason to do that, because if we start bumping everybody back, let's say Tobizaru and Nishikigi get exactly what the math says, no more, no less. we are going to have to move Midori Fuji back. So he'll go up 3.5 ranks on 10 and 5. That's okay. Onisho goes up 1.5 ranks on 9 and 6. That's fine. Takayasu goes up 3 ranks on 10 and 5. That's okay. And Ganoyama goes up 2 ranks on 9 and 6. That's also okay. If Meisei doesn't get over-demoted, then this is kind of a necessity. Like, I don't think they're going to make Shodai go back and get no promotion. That's just not what they do. Now, what's also possible is they could put Ganoyama here, Shodai over here, and then bump Meisei back an extra half a slot. That's totally feasible. Are they going to do this, though? Well, I think they're more likely to do this than they would have in the past. They've shown more of a willingness to over-demote guys slightly recently, if they think it's justified by what's going on around them. Like last time, there was the big question of where Mitakeumi was going to land, and he ended up getting almost his full mathematical demotion, except they saved him a half rank to push Hokuseiho back an extra half rank. And there wasn't a clear reason for it, but they did it, so they're willing. This seems like a pretty reasonable setup, actually. They've shown a significant preference for winning records over higher ranks. The Joy, again, has sort of been an exception, even if it wasn't last time. But Ganoyama had Sanyaku opponents. It's not like his schedule was significantly easier than Shodai's. So I could easily see them giving Ganoyama preference over Shodai, giving Shodai the half rank to make sure he gets a promotion, and then Meisei having to suffer with an extra half rank demotion to make room for those guys. Does Takayasu get moved up ahead of Tobizaru? I mean, those three guys, Ganoyama, Shodai, Takayasu, they mathematically went to 2 East. Tobizaru is mathematically 3 West, as long as you're not saving him any ranks because he was in the Sanyaku. That one's tough. Again, in the past, like even a year ago, I would have said, no, they're not going to put Takayasu behind Tobizaru or ahead of Tobizaru. That's crazy. They would never do that. That's just not how they do things. But now, this is kind of a bigger question mark. I actually think this is a lot more realistic, and it's, with the math being what it is, it's always justifiable. It's just a question of what they're going to do. I think this could actually happen. Takayasu ahead of Tobizaru, Tobizaru getting stuck with an extra half rank in demotion. Now, do they do that to Nishikigi as well? It looks like maybe they should. Like, Meisei got an extra half rank, Tobizaru got an extra half rank. Shouldn't Nishikigi get an extra half rank? But there's a flip side to that. Takayasu went 10 and 5 and went up 3.5 ranks. So shouldn't Midori Fuji go up 3.5 ranks on 10 and 5? Isn't that also correct? I'm inclined to think that they're going to leave Nishikigi where he is, because they do still generally have allow themselves to be slightly nicer to guys with worse records. So this looks very plausible. Onisho gets his bit of a promotion. Takayasu gets his bit of a promotion. But almost everybody is getting under-promoted relative to the math. That's just how this one's playing out. Now, when we get to Hokuseiho and Shonen no Umi here at Maegashira 6 West, now there's a spot open ahead of them. Again, in the past, I would be inclined to say, well, Shonen no Umi should end up getting the advantage here, but I really have no reason to think that's going to be the case. Hokuseiho is in a very good position to get bumped ahead because Shonen no Umi's schedule, like if you compare Ganoyama's to Shonen no Umi's, it's easy to automatically think that Shonen no Umi was, well, he was right next to Ganoyama. Why wouldn't we show him a little bit of love? But Shonen no Umi had no Sanyaku opponents. Ganoyama had 3. So Ganoyama's going to get, if they're going to look at that at all, Shonen no Umi gets no benefit from his rank here. I think Hokuseiho definitely goes ahead in this tiebreaker. It just plays way too well into everything that they've been doing all year. Now we've got Takanosho and Kinbozan. Similarly, I would have usually said Takanosho, they're not going to over-demote him, so they're going to leave him there, and then Kinbozan loses a half a rank. This time, I don't know. I think pretty safely Kinbozan and Takanosho are going to be the M7s. It's just a question of in which order. So for the moment, let's move Takanosho over here, which means Endo gets bumped back. And now Mitakeumi, Myogiryu, and Atami Fuji all have 3 spots that they can, or they need 3 spots, I should say, but they don't have 3 spots. They have 2 because they all have to get bumped back. So again, let's go with the winners. Atami Fuji, Myogiryu, and then does Mitakeumi bump Ryuden back? I mean, if they've been doing it to everybody else, is there a reason not to do it here? Because if Mitakeumi only goes here, that's only 1 rank on 9 wins. I am inclined to think they will just bump Ryuden back. He'll lose an extra half rank, and hey, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Kodo Echo, in all this mess, actually gets saved a half a rank because there's no one to go in 10 West, so he can slide up there. Sadanumi and Hiradoumi, this one's pretty easy. Somebody's going to benefit, and the other one's just going to get what he should by the math. We'll give it to Sadanumi. Let's stay consistent. Now, Tomokaze is coming up from Juryo. So Oho's going to get bumped over because Tomokaze is going to get bumped down. We know that. Same with Ichi Yamamoto. So Takara Fuji will only lose his half a rank and go to Maegashira 12 West. Tamawashi, well, wait a second. Do they give Takara Fuji a half a rank demotion and move Tamawashi over to here? Yeah, probably, because there's a rank and a half between them on math. And last time they showed if they felt it was deserved, if it looked like it was deserved. Mitakeumi, he took it almost completely in the pants, and Tamawashi's getting saved a little bit here. This looks like it should be correct. So we've got Tomokaze mathematically ahead of Ichi Yamamoto. So everybody else here is coming up from Juryo except Tsurugisho. Does Tsurugisho get bumped all the way from 16 to 13? I don't think so. They have created gaps for what looks like no reason amidst the Juryo promotees, so I don't think they're going to collapse them together as much as possible. Tsurugisho going up to 14 West makes sense, but this is really questionable. Where they put the Juryo guys is, I mean, this is an educated guess right now. 13 West for Tomokaze, 14 East for Ichi Yamamoto, because that should be the order they go in. And then everybody else coming up from Juryo is so far behind those two that creating a little bit of space makes some sense. But it might only be a half a rank, because let's scroll up a little bit. Look at the top here. There's only 40 guys mathematically in the division right now. We're going to have to either move up 2 more guys or leave 2 guys that could be demoted, or 1 and 1. So we've got Tohakuryu, Roga, Churnaumi. We'll put Roga behind Churnaumi, and let's move them all up. Let's just, for the moment, assume that they're going to be ahead of everyone else. This may not be the case, though, in the real thing, but for a draft purpose, it'll work. The next Juryo guy is Kitanowaka, who finished with 8 wins at Juryo 2 East. So that puts him to Juryo 1 East. The next guys who are from Makuuchi, who had losing records, are Nishiki Fuji and Aoyama. Are they going to demote Nishiki Fuji from 13 West on 5 and 10 and Aoyama from 14 East on 5 and 10 in favor of a guy who got barely 8 wins at Juryo 2? I don't think so. That seems... I suppose at this point, we're still working on what's likely and what isn't, but I'd be really surprised. That would go against a lot of both past and present tendencies. So Nishiki Fuji was ahead of Aoyama, which means Nishiki Fuji goes to 16 West, Aoyama goes to 17 East. They're both dropping 3 ranks on 5 and 10, which is perfectly normal for a demotion. And there are so many guys, Kitanowaka, Bushozan, if they had each had 1 more win, they could have jumped into the division. Oshoma, Shimazuumi, they needed 2 more wins, which is obviously a lot harder, but there were possibilities here. It just didn't happen. So looking at this, looking over Makuuchi, I'm sure I'm going to have different thoughts about this as time goes on, as I look at this closer to the next Basho. But this looks all right. None of the Juryo guys go above 13 West. There's a little gap between the guys who totally kicked ass and are moving up and the guys who did okay but made their way into Makuuchi anyway. The over demotions are pretty consistent. The under promotions are pretty consistent. This looks good. This actually looks pretty all right. If there's a big question to me, it's what they're going to do with Tobizaru and Nishikigi. Because in this situation, they're both over demoted coming out of the Sanyaku. That is unusual. But like, again, as I've said in the past, this year, 2023, they've done things noticeably differently, and there just aren't that many occasions to look at. We don't have like a scientific sample of guys who could be over demoted coming out of the Sanyaku to really get a grip on what they're likely to do. So this seems okay. I think this seems fine. Let's go to Juryo real quick. This one is easier in a way. The bottom of the division is really the question. Kitanawaka is going to get his move up to 1 East. He was 2 East. He got his 8 wins. He'll move up. Bushozan or Kota Shoho. I am inclined to think they're just going to leave Kota Shoho at 1 West, and because he was in Makuuchi and they're over promoting Bushozan anyway. Shimizu Umi, we'll just move him to 2 West, but 2 West for Shimizu Umi and 3 East for Oshoma makes sense. Unless they decide to put Kageaki up there. So how does this look? Kageaki here, and then Shimizu Umi here, and then Oshoma here. They only give Oshoma a half rank there, and then you got to under or over demote Daiamami. Do they do that? You know, they very well could, but I'm not going to do that here. Let's be nice to the Juryo guys. Shimizu Umi gets a little over promotion. Oshoma and Daiamami get what they should. Kageaki lands in the empty space. Onosato jumps way up. Shishi bumps over. He's still got a nice promotion. He's got they both have a reasonable chance at making it to Makuuchi next time. Although, if you watched any of Juryo, Onosato looks like he's going to absolutely smash his way into the division next time. Hakuoho, yeah, probably bump him up a little. Chiyoshoma next to him. They could go in either order. It really doesn't matter. They could go either way with this. Tamashoho Tamashoho only loses 5.5 ranks on 4 and 11. Seems fine. Chiyomaru gets a nice little bump up. Well, or do they give that spot to Daishoho because he's coming down from Makuuchi? I think that's probably what they do. They could even bump Daishoho ahead of Tamashoho. Yeah, actually, I think they might do that. Because Tamashoho's still getting under demoted, and he looked like ass in this tournament. The poor coffee shop manager is just gonna have to work his way back up from the middle of the division again. Chiyomaru, Juryo 8, Toki Hayate, Takahashi, who looked so good early, and I don't know what happened after that. But now what do we do? Look at all these losing records. Yeah, we can bump Tenshoho. Tenshoho is going to get a completely bananas promotion here. Even if he doesn't go to exactly 9 West, he's going up a lot. Takakento is going to end up with a 1 rank demotion on 6 wins. So is Aqua. Shiden, I imagine he's not going to get less than 1 rank. I suppose they could do a half. Asakoryu is certainly going to end up at 13 West. And what do they do with the rest of these guys? Wakatakakage has to go out of the division. Kiho has to go out of the division. Does Hakuyozan, 4 and 11 at Juryo 10? Well, he is the next guy out. And over on the other side, we've got Yuma, Hidenoumi, and Hitoshi. Now, they might not go in this order. In fact, they probably won't go in this order. It should be reversed. Hitoshi was 6 and 1. He won the Yusho. This is probably the order they're going to go in. Hidenoumi comes back. Hitoshi, becomes the next wildly, outrageously successful guy here, or not. Who knows? Now, Takeru Fuji, 5 and 2 from Makushita 6. So let's do some quick math. If you look at it as a quote-unquote normal mathematical problem, that puts him at Makushita 3. We've got Wakatakakage out of the division, right? We've got Kiho out of the division. We've got Hakiyozan out of the division. Now, Chiyo Sakai and Azumaryu are basically equal. 4 wins from Juryo 8 is -7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's Makushita 1. It's really hard to see them bumping either of these guys out for Takeru Fuji or Tochi Musashi, especially Tochi Musashi. So I think Azumaryu gets saved, and Chiyo Sakai, they're going to be Juryo 14 in whichever order. So congratulations, Azumaryu. You are becoming the new Shimano Umi. Both of you were just waiting to see when you actually leave the division. Probably going to be Azumaryu, given that he can't do anything but push on a guy's head or lose. But I guess we'll see. And that's going to do it for our instant Banzuke for Kyushu 2023. This is what we got. Let's see how much it changes by the time the actual Guess the Banzuke video comes out. What do you think? Is anything blatantly incorrect in your eyes? Do you think anybody is going to be moved significantly differently from what we have here? Let me know in the comments. Other than that, enjoy. We're going to have the recap on the tier list soon, but also there's been a lot of discussion about Takakeisho's win in the playoff over Atami Fuji, and oh, how dare he Henka. I'm not going to argue in favor of the Henka. Y'all know I love a good Henka. I'm going to argue that wasn't a Henka. I'm going to make a quick video on that in the next day or two, so look for that. Otherwise, have a great day, and I will see you soon.